The whole design in this video is a hybrid of my two most popular sets to date, these black and white ones and these chaotic colour holds. Both these sets sold within 5 minutes of going live, which to me means people like this sort of stuff, so I'm hoping that by combining the two I can create something that is just as popular. I make a lot of different holds out of a lot of different wood, but Wenge and Maple are some of the more high-end woods that I use. They're both really, really hard to work with, to be honest. They're really dense, they're really strong woods. They're normally found in like the necks of guitars and fine furniture, that sort of thing. But they also work really well for holds. You can't scratch them for the life of you. And yeah, they just work really well together because obviously black and white, all polished up, it's going to look amazing. So far I've just cut them to length and thickness planed them, and now I am cutting them into strips and organising them for the first glue up. So I'm going to be gluing everything up quite a lot in this process. This is the first glue up and I'm going to split it into two different boards, just alternating the Maple and Wenge at this point. I use the flat parallel jaw clamps here and Type 1-2. The jaw clamps keep everything pretty stable, and I've got those coals on the left, which allow me to keep everything flat as well. The Type 1-3, that I use has quite a long open time and is totally waterproof once it's dry. So I have a bit of time to play around when I'm setting it all up, which for me is pretty handy, and also I don't know, it just makes the holes quite robust knowing that they're waterproof, and it's about as good as you can get that glue. So once they're dry the next day and they've all cured, I thickness plane them back down to being totally flat, and then basically repeat that process of cutting them up and gluing them together 4 more times, which you're going to have the joy of watching. This is what they look once they're glued up out of the thickness planer. Nice and flat, beautiful grain in there. They're going to come out really well. So now you just offset slightly from the size you used before. So you get a little bit of maple and a little bit of Wenge in each cut. And yeah, slice them down into lengths again. Organize those lengths, glue them up, and do it again. So glue up number 2, once they've all been sliced down, because the tops are put through the planer thicknesser, they're dead flat and I can glue them up. So you slice it all down, flip them on their side, and you can start to see the pattern emerging here. Not quite yet, but we're getting some randomness in there. I make a big mess out of the glue on this one, it goes everywhere and I use far too much, but I guess that's better than using not enough. Again, parallel jaw clamps are an absolute lifesaver in this, and the Type 1-3 having a long opening time allows me to mess stuff up, go back, correct it, and just play back and forth with these clamps, tightening the coals, untightening the parallel jaw clamps, just to make sure everything is sitting flat and steady for when the glue dries off, well, for when it's all set up, and let the glue dry overnight, because you really want to maintain as much of the wood as you can in this. If they're not very flat once they finish the glue up, I have to take quite a lot off in the planer thicknesser. So yeah, these turned out really well. I planed and thicknessed them up, took them back to the bandsaw and cut them down again, and then time for glue up number 3. Again, you just flip them, glue them, and here they are. This is the next day. I have planed them down again. I went to the chop saw on this. I don't know why. I figured it would be better. I actually chopped them down a bit and then ended up going to the bandsaw and doing it the same way before, because I realized the kerf, which is the thickness of the blade on the chop saw, was taking too much wood away basically, and I wanted to maintain as much of the board as I could. So I did a few, as you can see they're quite thick here on the right, on the chop saw, and then abandoned this idea and went to the bandsaw instead because it's just way better. So once they're all chopped down to the same size on the bandsaw, which I didn't film because I was a bit lazy, you lay them all out, and with those two boards I alternated the boards throughout this layout and then flip everything onto its end grain like this to reveal the final pattern that I'm going to have for these holds. Okay, so I've done my clamps, everything is dry, it's been curing for 24 hours now, hence the costume change, and it's time to mark out the holes. You can see through these, it's super useful. This one I haven't transferred onto the Perspex yet. So yeah, I just pop them in how I want, and you can also with these, you can line them up so you make sure they just about fit. I'll just about do there, and then that just about fits on there. I'm going to be making mirrored, so I will do the same 3 holds on here. Okay, so you can see where I have got a little flat bit at the bottom, and then we go to 20 degrees, and then we go to 45, and it gives me, there we go, come on, focus, there we go. Alright, so it gives me flat, 20, 45, flat again, and when you sand that, it gives it a really nice profile. So yeah, that's this shape, and I'll get in and do the others. I really like these on the sides, this is looking really good. Ooh. One of the limitations to using a router, well, the benefit is that you get a really nice smooth round over, which is great and uniform, but it's quite difficult to get it into the corner bits like this. So as you can see here, all the flat topped bit has been done and the corners haven't. So what I do is I just go back to the big sander and take these corners in, but I have a really nice reference now from that router bit. So I just copy that using the sander onto the end bits here. Just to emphasize that point again, so 2 holes here, this one where I've cut right up to the line, this one where I've left a little flat spot, this one really positive crimp, this one not so good, and you have to get in a bit higher angles to get to the back. So same 30-degree in cut, same thickness of hold, but one's a really big crimp that you could probably drag, and the other one is slightly more high angle, and that is literally just where on the bevel I put the in cut. So yeah, another variable you can change. You can change the thickness, you can change the size of the round over, you can change where you put the in cut, and you can change how steep the in cut is. All of those things interact with how hard you're climbing and what angled board you have. So you need to think about all those things when you are making your holds. if you have like a slopey edge like this, you're not going to get your thumb on the back there. If you've got something like this, where I've left a flat edge, you can pinch that, so you're going to get a really nice pinch there, which means that doesn't need to be quite as good or an in-cut to be the same level of hold as something like that or like that. So yeah, just think how much you're getting off the thumb, how wide the thumb is, if you're having a thumb or if you're having like a slopey edge. And all three holds have actually got the same in-cut and the same thickness, but are very, very different to hold. This has got thumb catch. This is like really positive, big draggy thing if you need. And these are more high angle. Yeah, so you can really mess around with grip position, hand position, without changing the holds that much. Now we have them all rough sanded on the belt sander. Got the roundovers done on the router, and I've cut the in-cuts on the bandsaw again. It's time for finish sanding. For this I use just a Makita random orbit sander. So that's one hold done on 80 grit. I've smoothed all the transitions, everything, all the saw marks are gone, and we're left like this. So for contrast, this is no smooth transitions, and all the saw marks are still on it, as you can see here. Yeah, so 80 grit on one, and then I'll do 8 grit on all of them, move up to 800 grit eventually. But yeah, lots of work to do on these. They're all finished, gone from 80 to 600, and they are looking pretty smooth. Next up, we've got to buff them out and put the shine on them. So this is the buffer I use, loose leaf. I got some white compound. It's meant for metal, but it works fine. On the left one, and the right one is nothing. It's just as is. Yeah, so it's dead easy. Yeah, that goes on there, and that goes on there. It really doesn't take long, and it starts going shiny. So then here we are, 4 glue ups, lots of cutting into strips, and 3 days later, and we get to see what the holes look like. Throwing them on the buffer changes them from the kind of matte post-sand look into this sort of glossy, buffed up finish that I just really love. Also gives a kind of dual text to the holes. The backs at 800 grit with this buff just become unholdable, so you can't like sneak a thumb onto them or anything like that. Obviously I leave the faces, as I said before, at 120 grit, so you can see here just like the high contrast glossy sheen you get from buffing them. I put holes in them. I start with a 15mm Forstner bit and then a 5.5mm brad point bit. It leaves some of these really nice little kind of shaving things that I kind of weirdly like to collect. Anyway, one of the most important things you can do with wooden holds is protect them from people with impact drivers. They just get absolutely rammed home in climbing walls, and I don't know why, but not everyone uses these little inserts. They're stainless steel, they don't rust, they're inexpensive. There is a link in the description below as to where you can get them from if you're making your own holds, and they're just absolutely essential. Last thing to do is put them under the laser and throw on a logo, and then we're all done. Thanks for following on. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll definitely get back to you. If you want to buy these holds, they're going to be available on my website, tailormadeholds.com. And yeah, thank you again for following on to the end of the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.